Thousands of people spent much of the evening peacefully protesting the death of George Floyd, an unarmed black man who was killed in police custody in Minneapolis. It was almost a tale of two groups in Portland last night. On the right here, you can see the massive group that gathered at Pioneer Courthouse Square. That group was peaceful, listening to speakers and staging demonstrations. On the left, a group gathered near 4th and Taylor, and we saw some confrontation between that group and police. This is a moment things escalated at 4th and Taylor just after 9:15 last night. We heard some explosions. We saw tear gas being deployed. Protesters scattered throughout downtown as officers tried to get them to leave the area.
Air 12 captured a scene during that time that is getting a lot of attention, and Portland police are responding this morning. Take a look at this video. It happened around 12:15 a.m. near Southwest 6th and Yamhill. Protesters were picking up barricades and moving them to the side of the street. That's when a police car drove quickly down through that crowd, hitting the barricades as people ran out of the way. Portland police said this morning, saying they are, quote, researching the circumstances surrounding this incident.
Portland Police Chief Jamie Rush gave an update on the chaotic situation downtown at about 2 o'clock this morning.
I want to recognize the thousands of demonstrators who came downtown in a peaceful manner and exercised their First Amendment rights. There are many thousands of you who are not involved in the violence and destruction, and I thank you. I still hear your message, and I know the others who are engaging in criminal acts do not represent you. Many others have aggressively engaged in active violence directed at the police tonight. Fireworks, bottles, bats, ball bearings, batteries, and other projectiles were thrown at the police throughout the night. After several hours of dispersal orders, things have calmed down and the majority of those involved have dispersed.
Chief Rush went on to say they've been getting a lot of questions about police marking cars downtown. The chief says that's only to identify people who may be committing crimes for them to pull over later. She says officers have seen some of these cars going around to give protesters weapons and other supplies. Chief Rush also mentioned that last night a pickup truck reversed toward some officers. No one was hurt. This morning, we've learned that officers detained or arrested more than a dozen people during the protest. Portland police shared this photo with us showing a gun they seized from someone. They also say another person they arrested had a fake gun. Police say they're still processing information about the arrest, so they haven't released any other details.
But like we said, the protest did remain mostly peaceful. Earlier in the day, a large group laid down in the middle of the Burnside Bridge as they marched from east to west Portland. They've staged this protest on the bridge before. Protesters laid down in the street for nearly 9 minutes to show how long George Floyd was pinned to the ground by a Minneapolis police officer with his knee on his neck. Some of them yelled, "I can't breathe," which were Floyd's last words. He eventually died due to asphyxiation, according to his autopsy.
That group eventually made their way to Pioneer Courthouse Square, where peaceful protests continued. Fox 12 reporters say they saw families and children at the protest. And take a look at this video we captured at about 8:30 last night. Someone brought an alpaca to Pioneer Courthouse Square.
And take a look at this moment. From around that same time, someone tried to burn an American flag, and protesters there quickly told them to stop. But the crowd eventually started moving away from the square.
Portland police ordered everyone to leave the downtown area at about 10:30 because of criminal activity. We spoke to one protester named Kyle Canty, who says that wasn't his experience.
I was at Pioneer Square, peaceful protest. The police start lying like they've always done and saying that there's criminal activity. However, there was no criminal activity. How can there be criminal activity when all the buildings are boarded up?
Canty gave us a better idea of exactly what the protests are trying to accomplish.
This is actually my third protest. I'm basically protesting for black people first, colored people, and then all people. This is dealing with police brutality, flat out. We want reparations too.
Then just before 11 o'clock, protesters began to gather around Pioneer Courthouse itself. Our reporters on the ground there say it felt as if protesters had lost their sense of unity and were largely unorganized. Police looked through the courthouse windows trying to assess the situation. The majority of the crowd started to march out of town, but some protesters headed toward the Justice Center, where police had a fence up to keep protesters off the surrounding area streets.
That's when we saw protesters begin to use fireworks near the Justice Center, and police responded with tear gas.
Oh, here we go. We got to move. Okay, we're running. We're fine, but we are moving.
That's Fox 12 reporter Bonnie Silkman, who was standing outside a large group of protesters when police began firing the gas. She stopped to catch her breath with many protesters who were doing the same.
Were you just hit by tear gas?
We had to run through it. They did it on either side of us, so there's no choice but to have to run through the gas. There's the only choice we have. Everyone here got burnt. I had to just help 5 people while they're following us.
Are you okay?
As okay as you can be.
Okay.
This isn't okay, though. This is not okay what they're doing to us.
Portland police say the crowd fractured into smaller groups after this and set fires and caused civil disturbance. They say most groups left downtown at about 2 o'clock this morning.